Well, you and I talk about this all the time. I think this is a reaction that, 40% of the U.S. economy is propped up by AI right now, and to invest in anything else, that anything else needs to, be generating outsourced returns.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sandbox Space Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Chris, joined as always by Baby Girl, who's on the couch, Pumpkin, who's eating her breakfast, and this is episode 81, by the way. And of course, we've got a special guest. So every week we bring a special guest. Garrett Davis is joining us again today. How are you doing, Garrett?
Very well, very well. Thank you for having me. Hello, GDEX World.
Yeah. So Garrett, the sort of executive director of the ShawneeXP Gaming Accelerator, which we'll have a few things to talk about today. But just overall, how's the world treating you?
World's treating us really well. We're going through our pre-accelerator program right now, so shameless plug. If any of you indies out there or college students are interested in applying to the Shawnee XP Accelerator program or launching your own indie companies or even self-publishing, we've got a free kind of program out there for you guys right now that takes you through kind of everything we'd want a studio to go through before they apply to the program. So we got a lot of awesome mentors on it. So check that out at ShawneeXP.com. Teams from the first cohort are moving along. Currently, the Nomad crew is in the first round of the Rising Tide from the Crafted Blue Ocean Games Fund. So, if you guys want to go and check that out, follow them. Play the games on Rising Tide. Vote for Nomad if you see them. So if they close that round, that'll be somewhere between 100 to 300K into an awesome Midwest development team. Mole Maiden just launched, so
Yep.
please go out, wish list, buy Mole Maiden. It's our first release from the accelerator program. So AJ at Tasty Games, has been working really hard to develop that one and launched it. So check that out. Yeah, it's been
Sweet.
pretty good in the Shawnee XP world.
Well, you should mention as well that the pre-accelerator is free, correct?
The pre-accelerator is free, absolutely. So totally free. This is kind of our love letter to indies, Midwest devs in particular, college capstones out there that are looking to form a studio.
Nice. So Garrett, we have got a lot to talk about today. There has been quite a few big announcements. Last week we talked about the price increases for the Xbox, which are pretty substantial price increases. But today we are going to start our conversation with, let me put this on, Showcase. There we go. So this is on news.xbox.com. Updates to Xbox Game Pass, including Essential Premium and Ultimate plans. Our goal with Game Pass has been clear. Deliver unmatched value, benefits, and a deep library of games for our players. Since launching in 2017, we've steadily grown over our subscriber and creator satisfaction. What a weird thing to say. We've steadily grown our subscriber and creator satisfaction. Like, what the fuck's that even mean? And today, creator participation and player engagement in Games Pass are at an all-time high. We have the opportunity for Games Pass to help more players find the creators and games they love. We know not everyone wants the same thing in their Xbox experience, so we're evolving Games Pass to offer more flexibility, choice, and value to all our players, whether you love day one releases, discover hidden gems, or playing across multiple devices and screens and across Xbox consoles, PC, and Xbox Cloud. Starting today, we're introducing 3 upgraded Games Pass plans based on how players play: Essential, Premium, and Ultimate. Each expands on game libraries, including PC titles, blah, blah, blah. All right, I'm not going to read all this. I think we have a couple interesting things. Before I do that, I'm going to jump over here. Here's the new pricing. I believe this starts on November 4th, if I'm not mistaken. It's $9.99 for Essential, $14.99 for Premium, and $29.99 for the Ultimate. Of note, only the Ultimate gives you new games on day one. So this little comment here, where was it? We know not everyone wants the same thing in their Xbox experience, so we're evolving Games Pass to offer more flexibility, choice, and value to all players. Whether you love day one releases, and then goes on to the other things. So let me get rid of this real fast. So I think it's interesting when they're like, whether you love day one releases. So they've taken day one releases away from some of the other packages, as is my understanding, and now it
Right.
is a service for the most expensive release. So I find it interesting how they, and again, Microsoft, we love you, glad you're around, but I feel like this is a lot of marketing speak, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm just a dude sitting in a room talking over the interwebs. But I like that they've now turned day one releases and some of these other things into player choice, which means you get the choice of paying more for the service that you had previously, potentially.
Yeah.
So, Garrett, what are some thoughts on this? This is coming hot off the heels of their raising the price of the Xbox console itself, and I've got another article stored after this that will kind of, I think, give some nuance to this. But just what are some of our gut reactions here?
Well, I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. I think this is a reaction that, 40% of the U.S. economy is propped up by AI right now, and to invest in anything else, that anything else needs to, be generating outsourced returns. So, for the game industry to keep, getting investment for Microsoft to care about it, I think they're going to have to keep, upping the price to make
You
sure
mean
that,
outsized
you know,
returns instead of
yeah,
outsourced
outsized
returns?
returns,
Or did you say?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
They're going to have to, keep upping the price of things. But I think there's a ceiling to what people will pay for. From what I understand, after they did this, there was a massive crash on their website for people trying to cancel their
Yeah,
Xbox
I
subscriptions,
I
right?
heard that. I have not been able to validate that. I heard
Okay.
it, but yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that was
also not
out
a
there in
journalist, so
the zeitgeist from what I was reading.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that the move to subscription is going to kind of change up how folks maybe go about building and publishing games. But I'd be curious to like hear your thoughts on, is this going to like what if this is a new tool in the game development toolbox and it's not going away and this just subscription model is going to kind of move forward. Is this the place that you kind of put your game on last, right? Like after you've published and kind of got the full amount for your initial release at whatever that price point is. Like, is Game Pass the place you go to make your long tail longer? After the game's been out for a year or two, because I'm assuming we're going to talk about this in a second. There are games who have published first on Xbox Game Pass who have lost out on a lot of money they could have made otherwise. So I think it's just, how do we figure out how to like leverage and use this kind of subscription based system, and where it kind of lives in the whole lifetime of development, is going to be kind of interesting moving forward.
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting elements about this day one thing is I'm wondering if I think this is just me. We're just sitting here talking, right? I'm just kind of thinking about stuff from a kind of business perspective. I wonder if this is one, it creates a value add for the ultimate pass where you'll get the games on day one. Okay, that makes sense. That's like a kind of a marketing shtick. But also, it might make it easier for Microsoft to navigate day one release deals. And maybe they're going to start doing more like, if you want exclusivity on the Microsoft platform or on any platform, like you have to pay for it, right? Like, like, oh, hey, I want to see, I'll just say Destiny, even though Destiny's a PlayStation property now, but we'll just say it for fun. But it's like, hey, we want Destiny to be a day one exclusive for Xbox. Like Bungie ain't giving that up for free, right? Like you're gonna have to pay for that. So I'm wondering if now, because of the thing we're gonna bring up as well about the lost revenue, there's been this consistent thread where a lot of larger games are feeling like they're not getting compensated appropriately, because most products, this applies definitely to games, but this applies to a lot of products in the entertainment space for sure, is that most of your products, you get your most of your revenue in the first 90 days. That's your, you mentioned the long tail. You're going to get your first 90 days. And for many of those games, it's the first 30 days. So you're looking at your opening weekend at a movie theater, right? And then you kind of look at the following weeks. Those are the ones where you kind of get your most bang for the buck. Now there's examples where that's not the case, right? Exceptions where maybe a movie, for example, gains a little bit word of mouth after the first couple of weeks, and then you start to see it jump up because the word of mouth is really strong on it, right? But in general, you're spending all of your marketing, all of your time talking to journalists, all of your time working with retailers to get you in that first batch. And so
Well, you should be.
well, you should be.
There's a
You
lot of
should be.
teams out there that don't, but yeah,
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 you
yeah.
should.
For sure.
Yeah,
Well, you should be. And so if you are on Games Pass for free, I think that does two things. One is you're now getting paid through a sort of streaming distribution system, which is not the same as just like, hey, here's my $60, you give me the game, right? It's less clear cut on how the income is being related into distribution, right?
right.
But also, I think the second thing is, and you kind of hit on this a little bit, but like we're all busy people. There's a lot going on. If you have a subscription service and you're like, oh, hey, let's say Netflix, you're like, oh, hey, there's this cool show coming out. It's on Netflix. I'm excited to watch it. If it's a subscription service, you are less likely to watch it right then, right? Because you know in the back of your mind that it's going to be there forever, right? Or
Right.
at least for a while. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to be able to watch it opening weekend, but I will get around to it when I've got time. And that could be the following weekend. That could be 2 or 3 months down the road. And so there's sort of like this like stretching of when people will engage and consume your product when it's in a subscription system. When you're like, oh, hey, there's this new movie coming at the movie theaters, you're like, okay, I'm going to make a plan to go to the movie theater to watch this movie. But if it's coming out on Netflix, you'll be like, we'll watch it sometime this week or in the next couple of weeks or whatever. You'll get around to it, right? And so that becomes a lot harder for developers to plan their revenue around because you're not quite sure. Like, oh, are they going to, our opening weekend wasn't where we thought it would be. Are they going to get around to watching it? Or like maybe they'll just get
Yeah,
distracted and never watch it. It becomes a
yeah.
lot harder to plan.
It's also difficult to, tell your landlord that, hey, this might take a little bit longer to monetize this game. So can, we
Hmm.
maybe have a long tail for rent, this month too. So,
Yeah, and,
um,
and and I think there's also a very clear, what would the right word be? There's sort of a divergence. If you are a large game developer and you are like, hey, this game had a budget of $250 million dollars and we're going to spend another $250 million dollars marketing, there is a clear, like, I'm spending this money on marketing and public relations and events and things like that. And in exchange, we received this number of sales for that.
right.
And then you will go in your back end analysis and kind of figure out what you think, it's nothing's perfect, right? But you'll kind of look at it and you'll be like, okay, I think going to something like GDEX was cost us this much and we got this many, hits on our Steam wish list. Going to GDC cost us 10 times more, but we got this number of hits. You'll kind of make those comparisons. But if you're part of something like Xbox Games Pass, and that is becoming a larger and larger portion of how people engage with your product, then in essence, a lot of the money that you're spending on marketing for the game is really just sort of marketing for the platform, a platform in which you have no ownership and control in. And so, you're kind of just like helping Microsoft out, but is that coming back to you in the way that a direct marketing campaign for a product would? And I would argue the answer is probably not.
Yeah, and like I said, like the way it stands today, like how do you strategically use it in the best platform in the best way? I mean, is this just a way to monetize your backlog, right? If you got a big backlog
Yeah.
of old games, do you throw it up there? Do you start, throwing a couple little updates and maybe some events around it, to get some revenue churning, on this cool, subscription service? But yeah, for day one titles, I mean, it's sketchy to, put it up there,
So let's bring up
right
this
now.
article just real fast because I think it ties in. So this is another article. This is from Windows Central, and this is Michael Hogland. So this was October 3rd. So this was a couple days ago. Report: Microsoft gave up $300 million in Call of Duty sales as a result of Games Pass. In a recent Bloomberg report, Microsoft has reportedly given up a potential $300 million, and this is US dollars, in Call of Duty sales as a result of putting the game on Games Pass. In the report, Cecilia De Anastasio says the price hike and other changes to the Games Pass plans are a sign that Xbox's big streaming push is still not generating the revenue it would like 8 years after launch, according to interviews with 7 current and former Xbox employees. The company is putting some of its top titles on the streaming service, but that's cutting into sales of higher margin games like Call of Duty, which came with Microsoft's 2023 acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Xbox gave up more than $300 million in sales of Call of Duty on consoles and PCs last year, according to one former employee who asked not to be identified. So who knows how legit these numbers are, but still, I think it stands to reason a title like Call of Duty is they're going to make their money on people going out and buying the disc or buying it digitally, through an online platform. Whereas just being a part of a subscription service, that's just not going to do it. And there's a reality too, where a lot of these subscription services are based on, hours played. Like that's kind of the key metric on how money. So a bunch of money comes in. Obviously, there's behind the scenes deals for things, exclusivity and stuff. We've already talked about that. But in general, all the money comes in a month. Microsoft looks at what games were played and the hours distribution. So, Mole Maiden, I love that game. I think AJ really did a great thing. But you're not going to get the number of hours played with Mole Maiden as you are with Call of Duty, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Just not going to happen. So
Right.
that means that the financial distribution of the income for something like that is going to be more heavily towards the games that have a lot of play time, which is not always in the benefit of the developers, right? Because if you are selling a game for $70, whether Garrett Davis plays 2 hours of Call of Duty or 20 hours of Call of Duty, you still got that $70, right? But
Yeah,
if you jump on Games Pass and you only play 2 hours of Call of Duty this month, and then maybe you come back to it next month and play 4 or whatever. Maybe there is a long tail on some of this stuff, but also the other thing to remember is as the months go on, as time rears its ugly head, there's more and more games on the platform, right? Which means that the time of players is also being more and more distributed over time. And so it becomes harder and harder to capture people's attention over the long run.
Yeah, especially for a live service game like Call of Duty. I mean, they're going to get, most of their play times, going to be at the beginning when, everybody's starting fresh and they're going through and unlocking all the guns and the weapons. I mean, you can't have a crazy long tail because then the next Call of Duty is going to come out. You know what I mean? I can
Yeah.
put off playing Baldur's Gate 3 on, Game Pass for 10 years, and when I come back to it, it'll be the same game, right?
Mhm.
Those live service games, they got to have those communities kind of wrapped around them. There needs to be, a short time to jump into a match and play a game. And there's something about going, I think, through that, initial launch with everybody else. Like everybody's still learning the maps, everybody's still learning the best way to play the game. Maybe there's not this, kind of meta around it. So I really do think these live service games, like MMOs, things like that, it's always the most fun, right when it launches. And if that monetization doesn't work for the studio to put it on this big subscription service, day one, then they're not going to do that. I think Microsoft knows that, and they're thinking that the $30 price point is what's going to incentivize them to not lose $300 million
Yeah.
by launching their game on the platform. But
Well, and
will
that
the
adds
customers?
another interesting wrinkle because Activision Blizzard is owned by Microsoft, right? So
Mhm.
they theoretically, I don't want to say they don't care about losing 300 million. I think everybody would care about losing $300 million, right?
Right.
But if they're viewing it as maybe like a loss leader, where they're
Yep.
like, hey, we're willing to take the hit on this 300 million because it's going to get us 450 million in Games Pass subscriptions. Maybe that's worth it to them. But it seems just based on what we're seeing here that the numbers aren't They're not shucking and jiving, right? The numbers aren't working for Microsoft. Do you think that $30 is, so I am someone who never, oh, sorry, pumps. I'm someone that never had Xbox Games Pass, but I'm also somebody that would regularly say that Xbox Games Pass is probably one of the best deals in gaming.
Uh-huh. 100%.
Now at $30, I don't know. It's like it's kind of moving its way up there. It's probably still. I think I move it maybe from the best deal in gaming down to a good deal. But now you've got PlayStation Plus breathing down its neck, and PlayStation Plus I think is if you buy the annual subscription, I think averages out to like $12 or $15 a month, something like that.
Right.
So yeah, what do you think? Do you think that this pricing is going to hurt them in the long run, or?
Well, you and I talk about this all the time. I'm kind of caught between, games have technically never been cheaper than they are today. I mean, that's a hot take. Don't destroy me online for this, but with the cost of inflation, games have stayed kind of steady for a long period of time. And I know the economy is not great right now. There's people that don't have a whole lot of disposable income, but the industry is just forced to make more and more and more money. And if you keep the price of the game the same, that's difficult to do. I think
Yeah,
the Game Pass at 15.99 was an amazing deal. There's something to be said about like a gym membership, right? You're going to go and buy a gym membership at $40 or $50 a month. That's going to incentivize you to go to the gym because you feel like you're going to lose money. You're paying for something that you're not using. The great part about Games Pass was I would go and try other games that maybe I would have never played before,
sure.
simply because I have the subscription, right? And that was opening me up to new titles, or at least playing games, more and more like often, jumping in and trying something instead of playing like another League of Legends match or whatever. I think it was beneficial for me, like as a player, to kind of like broaden my reach of games that I wouldn't maybe have tried if I didn't have the subscription service. I think there's probably a amount of money where that subscription service just doesn't fit into my specific life circumstances. Um, $30 doesn't scare me, a whole lot, particularly if you're getting like the day one releases, which is why I think they're smart to do the tiered bit, right? Like I could see myself, keeping the 15.99 tier and having a big backlog of games to go on and try. And if there's anything that comes out on day one I really want to buy, I can go pick that up on Steam. I can go pick that up in a bunch of different places. So
Yeah.
um I don't know. We'll see how this thing works out. Although I did just link you an article that came out, looks like today. Microsoft halts Xbox Game Pass price rises in select markets.
Yeah, I don't think the U.S. is one of those select markets,
Okay.
but I don't know. Read it. I haven't read it. You can read it behind the scenes, but yeah, no, I agree to a lot of that. I think that I just did a quick calculation while we are sitting here because I've been playing some Borderlands 4. I bought Borderlands 4 the Ultimate Edition or whatever the f you call it, and it ended up being $140 after taxes, which is pretty expensive, right? But it includes all the upcoming DLCs and stuff. And generally, I've enjoyed the Borderlands content, and the expansions for Borderlands 3. I thought they were fine, and so I was like, I'll just kind of get the Ultimate Edition. I've looked up. I've played 84 hours of that game since it came out, which equates to $1.67 per hour of playing it. So if you're looking at it that way, if you're paying $30 a month for Xbox Games Pass and you're playing, 25 hours or more a month, then it probably is a pretty good deal for you, right? And I ain't done playing Borderlands yet, but that's the big thing is because I had a one-time purchase for this game. Every hour that I put into it is going to reduce that number over time, and so take that into account for whatever it's worth. I hate being Mr. Cynical Christopher here. But I've said this last time. I say this a lot when I'm out doing my Senate conversations. But I believe, just looking at what is going on, that we have a lot of economic indicators right now that are blaring red that we are heading towards a very bad space. And if that is the case, then I think that the number of people that are going to have the disposable income to do these kind of things is going to shrink dramatically. Now, what's interesting about the video game industry is that it's relatively recession resistant. And so it may come to a point where I don't know why Pumpkin is. She's just so. I gotta put you down.
Really wants to be involved in the conversation.
I know. I think she's just like just feeling needy. I wonder, do I have a little chasey? Maybe here. Let's go do this. There you go. Sorry about that. It may get to a point where people start making financial decisions around things like vacations, going out to eat, going out to movies, things like that, and the cost of $30 a month for Games Pass just starts to become more and more and more viable because they're cutting out all these other things. You know, we're cutting out $200 a month and going out and eating at restaurants, and we're cutting out the trip we were going to have to, the lake or whatever, which would have cost us, $500 to $800,000. Then it starts to, I think, look pretty good, right? But I just don't know. Also Microsoft for whatever just keeps giving me the impression, and maybe this just because I'm knee deep in it, but it's just like that like firing the 10,000 Xbox employees and then the following month talking about how they had one of their most profitable quarters ever, and like you said, bolstered by AI, which in and of itself I think is a bullshit term because when they say AI, they're talking about like generative AI, like being able to create assets and stuff. When other people say AI, they're talking about like generalized AI, which is sort of two different things. But it just rubs me the wrong way. It's like you fire 10,000 people and then 3 weeks later you talk about what an amazing quarter you had.
Yeah, and then you go and apply for, I'm not sure if you saw this, a couple thousand H-1B visas to bring workers like in from like overseas right after you laid off like 10,000 people. So make that make sense. It's a very interesting time, I think, in the tech
Yeah.
world right now.
Also, what is interesting too, we talked about this last week with the Xbox price increases, the console itself, is that we are 5 years into this generation, and so into the life cycle for this consoles, which means at least in the United States, Europe, most quote unquote advanced countries, a bulk of the sales have been done for these. So, raising the price of a console at this point is probably not going to have as much impact as it would, in 2020 or 2021. But that being said, I mean, dude, the PS5 Pro is $750, and the new Xbox Series X I think is $650, and the PS5 Pro is way better than the Xbox Series S or X. I mean, and just the base PS5 Pro the base PS5 I think is $550 right now. So are you going to spend an extra $100 on an Xbox Series X as opposed to? They're already losing the console war. If you're just talking about the install base units sold. I don't know. Bold move, Cotton. See if it works out for you.
I don't know if they care. I mean, Xbox is just going to be a Windows box with like a Xbox overlay on it at this point. Like Steam's going to be on the box itself. I think Microsoft is more concerned about OpenAI and winning the AI race, and than it really is about like the Xbox like winning the console war. Like that's small potatoes to them. And so they're just kind of considering it, like on the back burner. Like Xbox is going to be this redheaded stepchild of
Yeah, I
this
mean,
AI race.
you could be right, but I mean, ultimately, well, one, that's just sad. I think that, I mean, there's a lot of people that
40% of
love.
our economy right now.
Well, I don't know about that. I think people are faking it. Like I just created a QuickBooks account, QuickBooks Online yesterday.
Right.
I've used QuickBooks for multivarious for over a decade, and I was creating one for my Senate campaign, and like literally every page of the intro was like QuickBooks AI. I was like, it's not AI. Just get these pop-ups out of my way so I can use your product. Like it's so frustrating. But that's a rant for another day. That's a rant over beers. But I think it's sad because one, there's a lot of people that really love the Xbox brand, and it means something to them. And two, I think that the video games industry functions better when there's three major players in the space that can kind of balance each other out and provide competition. I think it just makes it better for consumers. But then three, this is what Microsoft always does. This is why the Zune failed. This is why the Windows Phone failed. This is why the Windows Tablet failed. It's like Microsoft doesn't know what to do with a good property when they have it. And then they get, I don't know if they just get distracted like a dog with a squirrel or something, or like it doesn't meet their revenue expectations. And so they worry. Like this could be, I'm not saying Microsoft's going to go anywhere, right? But I could see a world in which Microsoft spends so much money on R&D for AI that that they're not thinking about the other stuff in their portfolio, and then the AI thing crashes on them and they start looking around and they're like, oh shit, like we let Xbox wither on the vine. And I don't see a lot of people run around talking about how excited they are about Windows these days, right? Like so it is totally possible that they could significantly shoot themselves in the foot by doing these kind of things. And it's certainly not creating any love for the Xbox brand right now.
Oh no. And that 40% is just the stock market, right? Those are
Yeah, you're talking about the stock market.
that's yeah, that's 40% in the overall stock market, which would be if it wasn't for AI,
So
down.
you want to hear something kind of wild?
Yes.
So the stock market's at all times highs right now, right? That's one of the things
Right.
that people are talking about. As you alluded to, the vast majority of the growth in the stock market is coming from the healthcare sector and the top seven, the big ones, your Googles, your Apples, your Microsofts, your tech companies.
NVIDIA,
So if you look at the S&P 500, you're talking about being generous. You're talking about 20 to 25 companies propping up the entire S&P 500, right? So just think about that. Out of 500 of the top companies in America, 20 to 25 of them are what's causing this rapid growth. So that has bubble written all over it to begin with.
in one sector, not even technology sector, in one sector of a sector, right? Just the AI portion of one sector. That's
Oh yeah, there was
right.
a analysis. Oh shoot, I don't remember where it was from. I was reading it like yesterday, where AI was responsible for not the most number of job losses in over the past I think it was 2 quarters, but it's within the top five. And you think about that, you're like, well, okay, well, it's within the top five, but it's an immature technology right now, right? So an immature technology in which a lot of people don't really have an actual use case for it. I know you love your chat GPTs and whatever, but there's not a real world consistent use case for AI. A lot of AI is just marketing speak right now. It's not actual generalized AI. And that's accounting for, even if it was five, I think it was like third or fourth reasons for job losses. Like that's a wild place to be for a immature technology with no use cases being responsible for being the top three or fourth reason that people are losing their jobs. That's
And
a scary place.
you're talking about a Games Pass subscription worth of price increases to your electric bill at the same time. These data centers are like sucking up, as much power as the city of New Orleans, the city of Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
for the ones that were kind of built there. And so I think you're seeing this like price squeeze. You're seeing, all these gains kind of built in one particular sector, and the rest of the economy kind of, slowing down. Which all means there's less, discretionary income for a lot of folks. Which
Yeah.
I again, like, leads back to the whole Xbox subscription based, Games Pass. There being more games than ever, people are going to get more choosy about like what they play and what they spend their time on. So
Sure.
at 15.99, I think that was a great deal. But as they keep increasing that price with everything else going on right now, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And
What,
just
what
real fast, yeah, about kind of think about the stock market as an indicator of these things. Like I saw an analysis that 5/6 of the volume of purchases of the stock market are corporations doing buybacks and other like VCs and investors purchasing stock. So 5/6. So that means 1/6 is retail investors and a few other things, maybe small VC or small corporate acquisitions. Of that remaining 1/6, right? 10% of the US population is purchasing about 93% of those stocks. So even though the stock market is booming, the vast majority of people, so you're talking about, 7%, 7 or 8% of the stocks that are being purchased are for normal people out of that 1/6. So whatever 1/6 times 8% is, that's the amount of stocks that normal folks like you and I are purchasing. So just the shoveling of money into the market, which also leads like I've got this thing. I was talking to someone the other day. I was like, look, the thing you got to think about AI is that these VC companies and these large corporations are shoveling money in there because for a lot of them, they have been investing in tech over the past 20 years that has not panned out. Blockchain, virtual reality, crypto, all those kind of things, right? They have not worked out. And so AI for a lot of these huge VC companies, like it's their last stand. If this doesn't work out for them, their empire collapses. And so these investment firms, these giant corporations are just shoveling money into AI for a technology that they don't even know is possible, doesn't really have any current use cases for. And the scary part is most of them don't even understand how it works. So we're like feeding this beast, this giant Cthulhu monster with just this constant like, influx of capital with no real end goal other than hopefully we won't lose our shit. And on top of that, we don't even know how any of this works. Like it's just, and now we're. I mean, I think you and I had talked about this over drinks. Like we're feeding models based on other AI models now. So it's become this
Yep.
like it's this like monstrous thing, or it's like Pizza the Hut just eating himself as and learning and like this is wild. It's like this giant train that we're just like barreling down the tracks and we're like, do we know where this train's going? And we're like,
Right.
nobody knows where this train's going. Like this train could be
Well,
driving through your goddamn living room and you don't know. And it probably is with the amount of job losses and stuff that are going to be happening.
and even under the best circumstances, right? Like what happens if they if all the promises actually come true, right? And I always say that folks are like, if it starts eating up a whole bunch of different jobs, there'll be other jobs that open up in the economy. And I don't think horses lost their jobs whenever cars came out because they got lazy, right? Like it just replaced a horse. Didn't make sense for a horse to do that job anymore.
Yeah.
So if they are successful with all this money that gets kind of poured in, and there becomes these industry like leaders around it, what they're aiming for is to replace human labor, right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if like so we're taking all these like massive financial risks, and the you know great path that has kind of been laid out in front of us for this type of technology is replacing human beings. And they're like, well, when we get there, we'll figure out how to kind of restructure this economy around it. That's a little scary to me, and this is for somebody that uses like AI, like every day. I think there's a whole bunch of things we got to look at, particularly in the games industry. I mean, like Unity AI, right? Its new features are rolling out, at the same time, and so to swing it back to the games industry, if we're going to keep making this industry as attractive as AI to investors, they're going to expect us to get bigger returns. That means making games, faster and cheaper than we ever have before, which means they're going to be pushing us into using AI to develop games faster. And I mean, I'm I'm not sure if you've checked out like that new video creation tool ChatGPT launched, Sora, but like my Instagram feed is already just inundated with AI slop posts
Oh yeah,
from stuff from
yeah.
everywhere. And
I saw
so
the latest thing is bears chasing little babies in a yard, and then a cat attacking the bear. Like there's like a
yeah,
dozen different versions of that video now.
right, right.
You know,
And so 19,000 games uploaded on Steam last year. Like, is it going to be double that this year with the amount of like AI
sure,
slop that gets thrown
totally.
thrown up on Steam? So if you're a small studio or even if you're a large studio trying to be noticed, which is probably the biggest issue in games right now. It's not even making a great game. It's like making your great game discoverable so people actually know it's there and finding an audience for it. That's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. But I think that opens up a lot of opportunities for smaller studios. And that's why we're doing the things we're doing at Shawnee XP. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You
it's
want
a
you want to hear
it's a
my
scary time. And
do you want to hear my capitalism is going to save us speech?
yes, please.
So I'm this is sort of like half, you know, half fun, but uh right now we are at a place and we are barreling towards a place that I don't know is recoverable from necessarily, where you can't trust anything you see or hear anymore. And the reality is most people don't even have the skills to make those determinations on what is and is not accurate and what is and is not real. Like that's a skill set that you learn how to cross reference things, how to understand sources, how to verify information. Like those aren't something you're born with. Like you need to learn that. And you need to understand like how to, that's a reason science exists, right? Science is a process that exists to remove our biases as best it can. And I think that capitalism has done a tremendous amount of damage to where we are right now as people and as society. But also, capitalism is a kind of like a gravity well. And at some point down the line in like a capitalist infrastructure, you need people that actually understand how stuff works. Like at some point you need a doctor that understands how to amputate your leg off. AI is not going to help you with that, right? You need somebody who understands how they can perform surgery on you and not kill you, right? And so how do we figure out what is true and is what is not, and how do we navigate that? And I think at some point, and this sucks that this might be the answer, is that businesses are going to create environments and hire people who actually know what they're doing and actually know what they're talking about. And the problem is, well, there's many problems, is that one is that if AI kind of does what it's doing, like there may just not be the jobs, right? There just won't be a need for many of these jobs. And so the people that actually know what they're doing and that are actually navigating things will be a very small subset of our population. So that's super, super problematic. But then the big problem is, will corporations use that power for good? And I don't think there's anything in history that tells us that they will. But right now, the ability for a business to make money consistently is not based, like right now as we sit, is not really based on, like there's just so many avenues of making money based on bullshit that
Hmm.
it's going to work. But that can't go on forever, right? You can't AI slop your way into creating a bridge or building a
Right.
skyscraper or doing cancer treatment or whatever. Like at some point, you jump out of a plane and you can pretend that gravity is not a thing all you want, but at some point you're going to hit the ground.
Right.
And so we need to kind of figure out how do we do this. which wraps it all around in the saddest thing, which is like you know me, I'm a big nerd. I'm a big fan of like Star Trekian utopian kind of world where like we should be creating a system that allows us, like in the Star Trek universe, the point of existing is to grow and better yourself. It's not to accumulate wealth and nonsense things. It's not to have the biggest house. It's to how do you better yourself, become a better person, become more knowledgeable. That should be the goal of society. And I think that I personally, and you can agree or disagree with me, I personally believe that a lot of us would be a lot more positive on AI and things like that if we felt that the world was going in a good direction overall, right? Like if we felt that there
Yeah.
was hope in a better future and that AI is going to lead us or at least assist us in that better future. And I don't think a lot of us feel that way right now.
Yeah, like the abundance theory, this is going to drop us down to a 30-hour work week, and AI is going to be the thing that kind of augments human work to, automate the non-fun TPS reports that everybody needs to fill out, and you need to just basically use AI to do the fun bits of your work and be more productive and give you more of your life back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the kind of like golden view, which I think still possible and may be where we end up. Instead of replacing humans altogether, that these tools become these kind of augmentations of what we do every day to make us experts in things that we might not be experts at and allow us to move and work quickly. I know like my own experience with AI thus far has made me more of a productive human being, it particularly on some work that I don't enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis. Kind of speeds that up for me, for sure. So I don't know. We'll see, but I do think the games industry is going to have to get on board of that train, because we're not just competing with Xbox versus Switch versus PlayStation anymore. I think the entire industry is competing with like attention for social media and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. Those are real competitors, and from an investment standpoint, it's AI, right? If I'm an investor, if I'm a VC, or am I going to dump money into a games publisher? Am I going to dump money into you know, uh, making these awesome IPs, or am I going to dump money into the thing that's generating crazy outsized returns right now, which is AI, right? Um, these folks didn't get to where they were at by just investing in the thing they like. They invest in the thing that makes more money. So I think that's where you're seeing these pushes from Microsoft and everybody else. Kind of leads all back.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Do you want to talk about this Royal Bank of Scotland thing real quick? I can pull up this article.
Yeah.
So
So
let
and
me.
I mean this I think this is like fits really well into what we're talking about. You can go ahead
Yeah,
and
let me.
lay
So this is from
out.
GameIndustry.biz. Royal Bank of Scotland to launch IP-backed loans ranging from 250 to 10 million euros. The Royal Bank of Scotland has unveiled plans to launch IP-backed loans aimed at high-growth businesses in Scotland. High-growth businesses are in quotations, so whatever that means. These loans will allow companies to access vital funding using the value of their intellectual property as collateral instead of traditional physical assets. The RBS is expected to start offering IP-backed loans in 2026. Earlier this year, a change in Scottish law, the Movable Transactions Scotland Act of 2023, came into effect, resulting in lenders being able to accept effective security over IP rights. The RBS plans to initiate loans between those amounts, improving the funding pipeline for businesses in Scotland who struggle to secure funding due to a lack of fixed assets. So I think that the big thing there, let me get rid of this. The big thing there is that the traditional mechanisms of getting loans involve putting actual physical assets up for collateral, but that goes directly against what we do in the software business, which is try to keep our physical liabilities as small as possible so that we can be creating content and, software platforms or whatever as inexpensively as possible. But that does put us into a position because anytime you develop anything, a typical game's going to take you 3 to 5 years to develop. And if that IP is worthless until it becomes available for sale, you've got nothing to get a bridge loan or anything for. Garrett, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's shocking to me because you remember 15 years ago, you would literally say this in meetings that in Columbus, Ohio, it's easier to get a loan for a food truck than it is to get a loan to start up a studio, right? Even if you have an amazing team that's launched a bunch of games before, even if you had released games and shown that you have like revenue coming in, it was very difficult to get debt-based financing for a game studio in Ohio, at least. And I think this is super interesting to me because there's a whole lot of pockets of the world that are trying to build a digital economy because they're worried about what happens when things like oil goes away, right? Saudi Arabia just bought EA, $55 billion.
Yeah, we
Um,
didn't even get to that
and
today.
yeah, and they're seeing the games industry as the I think a lot of it starts to leave the United States. Everyone's fighting on where can be the next kind of games hub, which should tell you something, about the games industry and the rest of the world, kind of keeping their eye on the ball. This is to me is Scotland thinking, hey, people are trying to figure out how to make games cheaper, faster, and better. They're leaving these sections of these traditional hubs. How can we attract this massive over $200 billion industry every fiscal year
Hmm.
into Scotland, right? And so they're literally allowing you to put up your IP as collateral to go after some of these loans. And I'm just thinking about who is their target audience for these loans. Is this like double A to triple A studios that have IP that's worth something? I can't imagine that the Royal Bank of Scotland would allow, a Scottish indie that's never put out a game before come in and take out, a $2 million loan
I
to go
wouldn't.
build a
Yeah, I
vertical
wouldn't
from,
think so.
right?
I think it would probably start with a company, a mid or larger sized studio that
Right.
because I mean, didn't Rockstar started in Scotland, right? Like so,
Yeah.
and there's definitely others. What's also kind of interesting about this, and again, you just brought this to my attention, so I haven't had a chance to really dig into it. Is that opens up, and I know nothing about Scottish law, so I'm just talking as sort of an idea here, right? But
Right.
that opens up a conversion pipeline for the Royal Bank of Scotland where they're like, hey, we gave you X amount of money. You put your IP up for collateral. If they default on paying back on the loan for whatever reason, they theoretically could do a conversion into an equity play for that IP. And now the Royal Bank of Scotland owns some percentage, if they're allowed to. I don't know if they are. If they're allowed to own a percentage of a private corporation, that allows them then to create an investment portfolio based on potentially either defaulting or maybe even if the private company is just like, hey, we don't want to pay you back. Are you willing to take X amount percentage of, instead of us having to pay that $2 million back, we would rather use that $2 million to continue to fund development. And so would you be willing to take, this percentage of the company? So it'd probably be the loan amount plus some premium to, compensate for the interest loss. That could be interesting for a bank to do.
And I think they see a big hole in the market right now. I mean, they literally say as more companies invest in AI and digital capabilities, we expect to see an increased demand for technology-driven services, which may not have the same tangible assets as more traditional businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
So I think they see a hole in early stage in funding in general for things that aren't AI right now. And if it's difficult for games to get funding, they're able to give out this debt-based financing, but I mean, this is dangerous for a studio, particularly depending on, what the interest rate for these loans are, like when they
sure.
kick in. You're risking a lot more than, taking, a publishing check if the game doesn't work out really well, right? Like the publisher's assuming a lot of that risk, and don't get me wrong, they get paid out a whole bunch on the upside. So, this is probably a better upside for you if the game's going to be super successful, right? Because you can pay those loans off like much faster. But I mean, it's like high interest credit cards, right? You go out and get this as something to just get you to your next, rent payment, your next paycheck, and then something happens, right?
Yeah.
You get sued by, Nintendo, or, something happens, and the whole studio then is now owned by, a bank. And man, how many, what's that going to do to gaming? Banks end up, sitting on
Sure.
the boards of, a lot of these studios at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of questions because IP is definitely a lot harder to, like, you can market rate your desks and chairs and buildings and stuff. It's a lot
Yep.
harder to put a value on IP in the game space for sure. But maybe it doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach, right? It could be something like I got a pumpkin hair in my eye. It could be something where it's like, hey, I want to work with a publisher, right? But what do
Hmm.
publishers want nowadays? They want pretty much like functional MVPs or betas almost. Like they want a game that's as close to done as possible before they decide to commit to it. So maybe
Right.
if you viewed this funding as like a bridge loan to get you
Hmm.
to a functional prototype, or something that would allow you to get that publisher money, that might not be too bad. And if the loan itself is a debt obligation not connected to equity, then a publisher wouldn't even care about it, right? Your debt's your debt. As long as they're getting their money on the front end on the sale and their revenue share, whatever their agreement is, I don't think a
Hmm.
publisher would care too much.
Yep. Yeah. And again, I think this would be amazing for like early stage studios, right? To go out and get like even like a micro loan, to get closer to a vertical slice, or something that they could go and test with somebody and then take to a publisher. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like their target audience are going to be these studios who probably had some kind of a breakout success that wants to grow it. And they'll put their IP up, to back the loan they go after. And I really hope the folks that mentors around them, to make sure that they're navigating that danger, really well, or you're going to see I think a bunch of studios, go down if they take some of these debt-based
Yeah,
financing, because those loans don't go away just
sure.
because the game didn't sell very well. They're going to expect payments to come in every month.
Well, that sounds like an excellent place to stop here, Garrett. I think on your
Yeah.
wise words there. So this has been episode 81 of the Sandbox.space weekly podcast. Garrett, before we wrap up, is there anything you want to reiterate? The pre-accelerator, any social medias, or anything you want people to keep an eye on?
Yeah, check out ShawneeXP.com. Like I said, the pre-accelerator program is running. Right now we do office hours every week. Every talk is recorded. This is going to be up, and live, year round. For anybody that wants to, come in and kick off a studio, we've got great templates there, from pitch decks to budgets, to how to validate the thing you're building, from legal talks from all of our amazing mentors, Ross Hirschman, Loading Law, Rami Ishmael, Oscar Clark. So
Renee.
it's an awesome program. Renee Gittins, yeah, kicks the whole thing off. So go and check that out, completely free. This is taxpayer funded. So please go in and check that out. And um, the new cohort for the ShawneeXP Accelerator program will be launching in 2026. So keep an eye out on our website, for when we're going to drop the applications for that.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Garrett. Again, this has been the Sandbox.space weekly podcast. Reminder, we do this every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And of course, you can follow us at thegdex.com if you want to see GDEX information. We have our Sandbox.space YouTube channel where we've been posting all of these. So please subscribe. Feel free to ask questions in there. We have a couple exciting announcements that we'll be making in the upcoming weeks. So keep an eye on that. So you can follow us. We're at the GDEX on all our social medias. But for now, thank you all for watching the Sandbox.space weekly podcast, episode 81. On behalf of myself, Baby, Pumpkin, everybody in chat, and our special guest, Garrett, we want to thank you for watching, and we will see you next week.